to convince people that such mitzvot were illogical and were inventions of Moshe's imagination. So in this parsha, you're not going to believe what just happened. My techelet went into my shoes. Whoa, baby! Oh, there was missing, see? There was missing the techelet. That's what Yahweh was saying. So in this portion, you go, what did you learn today? Oh, nothing. My rabbi believes in techelet in the shoes and moving pictures. So in this portion, listen, we begin with the rebellion of Korach and 250 other men who joined with him. What we have not been told in Scripture is the rest of the surrounding circumstance, which our sages have gladly preserved, thankfully preserved. It seems as these other men, Datan and Abiram, pop out of nowhere. Let's look at verse 12. Is anyone enjoying?
Yes.
You better. I have another hour, so you better enjoy it. You better get into the swing of things. You better get into the mood. Turn to your neighbor and say, you got to get into the mood.
You gotta get into the mood.
Not DL Moody. You got to get into the mood. Verse 12. Moshe sent and called Datan, who was one of the rebels, and Aviram, another rebel, with Korach, the sons of Eliam, who said, we will not come up. Moshe, you took us out of Mitzrayim, a land flowing with milk and honey. You promised to bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey. Verse 14, you've given us nothing. So since you've given us nothing, since Yahweh didn't give you a commandment about tzitzit and techelet, we'll do it our way. We will not come up. We will not meet with you. We will not obey you. We will not respect you. And we will not show up at the Ohel Moed. Hello?
We ain't coming up.
We're not coming to your little meeting with Yahweh.
No.
Tell Yahweh we won't be there. Datan and Aviram. But was this attitude born overnight? Did they just hook up with Korach in rebellion? They just happened to meet by circumstance?
These guys were leaders.
Not at all. These guys had a history. See, that's why, and I know this may not sit well with some folks, but I kind of watch who fellowships with who. And birds of a feather do flock together. So that the gossipers and the slanderers, they'll find each other. They'll hook up with each other. And so then when 4 or 5 people sometimes leave a congregation, whether it's ours or another congregation, you find there's a common thread, usually. Hello? There's usually a common thread. They usually have one friend that's kind of like the common thread between the other 3 or 4. And you'll also find that the gossipers and the slanderers and the troublemakers and the ba-ba-ba and the ba-ba-ba and the backbiters and the complainers and the murmurers usually don't develop that condition at 18349 Northeast 4th Court. They usually have it for many years. It's a condition, it's a pre-existing condition. And the pre-existing condition comes into the camp, and lo and behold, they find others who are Datan and Aviram. So the people who complain and they murmur and they grumble and this is not right and this is not right. So you find, and so usually when you remove the complainer or the gossiper or the slanderers, lo and behold, 5 people stop coming. But there's a connection. Hello? But you can't be too hard on these people because they didn't have this persona when they came to Bnei Yeshua. This was a pre-existing condition. They just found other folks like them at Bnei Yeshua. Don't worry, I'm not looking at anybody, so chill out. Alright. Now, what kind of track record did they have? Go with me to Shemot. Keep your finger there. Go with me to Shemot. This thing doesn't happen overnight. Rebellion doesn't happen overnight. Speak to any rebellious person who is truly confessing and truly wants to make amends, like Yaela and like Shoshana. Talk any rebellion who's truly confessing and coming clean, and they'll tell you this thing in their life didn't start with Bnei Yeshua, and it's not because of Tehillah, and it's not because Rebbetzin Rivka doesn't smile. They've had a problem with complaining and murmuring and dissatisfaction or depression or whatever the condition, it was pre-existing. And when they came here, they gravitated to other believers who were also carrying some of this baggage. We'll see their track record in Shemot 2:11. Look at Shemot 2:11. In Mitzrayim, it came to pass in those days, Moshe was grown, and he went out to his brothers and looked on their burdens. He saw a Mitzrayim smiting, there's an error, so mark it. It's supposed to be on an Ivri. One of his, you see there are small errors? They don't change the meaning, but they're there. And we'll fix them for the second edition. He looked around and he saw there was no man. I'm sorry, where were we? 11. He saw a Mitzrayim smiting an Ivri, one of his brothers. He looked all around, and when he saw that there was no man, he killed the Mitzrayim and hid him in the sand. So what did he see? He saw an Egyptian or a what? Mitzrayim fighting or smiting
A Hebrew. The Ivri.
an Ivri. A Hebrew. Notice, listen, notice. The day after this fight, Moshe went to the rescue of a Hebrew man that was being beaten, and Moses killed the Mitzrayim. Look at this. Verse 12. He looked around. Moshe saw there was no man. What did he do to the Mitzrayim? He killed the Mitzrayim and hid him in the sand. So he saw a Mitzrayim smiting a Hebrew. Moshe looked around, got angry, smote the Mitzrayim, and hid him in the sand. So what did he do to the Ivri? He spared his life. What did Moshe do to the Ivri? To the Hebrew? He spared his life. Then Moshe went out the second day, and see, another day, two men, circle that word, two men of the Ivrim argued together. He said to them that did the wrong, why do you smite your neighbor? And one of the Ivrim said, who made you a prince and a shofet over us? Judge, who made you a shofet over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Mitzrayim? And Moshe feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now, the Hebrew, according to our sages, listen carefully, take notes. The Hebrew that Moshe saved was none other than Datan, the same cat of Bamidbar 16:12. Who were the two men mentioned as joining Korach in the rebellion with the 250? The 250 are not mentioned by name. The two are, who are the two? Datan and Aviram. Datan and Aviram were the two men who were fighting when Moshe saw them and said, why do you fight? You're Hebrews, you're brothers, you're Echad, you're one nation. Why are you fighting? One of those two Hebrews was none other than Datan. Are you with me? The man whose life Moshe had spared was Datan. The next day, look at, I'm going to prove this to you. Look at verse 13. He went out the next day, and two men argued, and one of the men said, are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian, the Mitzrayim? How did he know Moshe killed the Mitzrayim? Hello? How did he know Moshe killed the Mitzrayim when there was no one around? He spared Datan's life from being killed by the Mitzrayim, and the very next day Datan is in a fight with Aviram, and instead of being what? Thankful and happy and gratuitous, Datan is complaining and he goes, you might have spared my life yesterday, but are you going to kill me today like you killed that Mitzrayite yesterday? So that Datan and Aviram don't just show up in rebellion, they lived in rebellion, and when Yahweh said, where tzitzit, Korach said, hell no! My rabbi said, where tzitzit. My pastor said, no, it's legalistic. Who you listen to? So as soon as Yahweh gives the mitzvah to Moshe to wear techelet on the tzitzit, Aviram and Datan, along with the rebellion of Korach, rise up, but Datan and Aviram had a history. Now let's continue. As this story goes, this is how it happened. Listen. The Mitzrayite had defiled Datan's wife. Datan's wife was Aviram's sister. Listen carefully. You want to know what the fight was about? This is in the writings, Pirkei Avot. The writings of the sages. Hello? Can we use the writings of the sages instead of scripture? No. Can we use it to fill in some of the missing pieces? You bet. You bet. I'm going to help you fill in some of the missing pieces. Isn't that why you come to Miami Beach? To get some of the missing pieces you don't get elsewhere? Let's continue. The Mitzrayite had defiled Datan's wife, which is why Datan was fighting with the Mitzrayite, because the Egyptians, the Mitzrayite, had violated the Hebrew Datan's wife. He sexually forced himself upon her, and Datan was not a happy Hebrew. Hello? And he fought with the Mitzrayite. Moshe sees it, comes to the aid and defense of the Hebrew, the Ivri, and does what? Smites the Mitzrayite.
Yes. Thinking he's doing good.
So who did he rescue? Who did he rescue? Datan.
Datan.
How does Datan show his gratefulness? The next day, according to Shemot 2:13 and 14, two Ivrim are arguing. Those two Ivrim are Datan and Abiram, because Datan was married to Abiram's sister. Very good. I'll say that again. Datan was married to Abiram's sister. So there's an argument between what? Brother-in-laws. You think you have problems with your in-laws? Then you know you're a Hebrew. All right? They're having a fight between what? Two brother-in-laws. Correct? Abraham, correct?
Yeah.
Good. It seems that Datan wanted to divorce his wife, who was sexually abused by the Mitzrayite, but Abiram didn't want that for his sister, because she had been violated unwillingly, and they were disputing how to handle the situation. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. In order for him to know that Moshe killed the Mitzrayite, one of those two, Datan, had to be there the previous day. And these two Hebrews are now arguing, saying, hey, look, my sister, your wife, was violated. So Datan says, I want to divorce her. Aviram says, you don't divorce her. She didn't do it on purpose. She was violated. And there's the argument. There's the fight.
Can't do that.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, it makes sense.
So they're arguing. We can see here the attitude of Datan. According to the sages, listen, these two, Aviram and Datan, are the very ones who reported that Moshe murdered the Mitzrayite to Pharaoh. They tattletaled on Moshe.
Got rid of him for 40 years.
And when one of them, Datan, said, hey Moshe, will you kill us like you killed the Mitzrayite yesterday? What did Moshe do? He hightailed it and booked to the land of Midian, i.e. modern Saudi Arabia.
Hello.
He booked. Is that, you understand what book means? He ran. He fled. He hightailed to the land of Midian, where he eventually would meet Yitro, because in Yitro's garden was planted the rod of Moshe, that once belonged to Adam and was preserved through the generations, and then of course on Noah's Ark. Remember that?
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. And what did the rod of Moshe that he found in Yitro's backyard, what did it say? Yud, Hey, Vav. He delivered Israel with the name of Yahweh. We read that in Sefer Yashar. Sefer Yashar. Now, so when we see these two individuals, Datan and Aviram, the ones who criticized Moshe, and reported his murder of the Mitzrayim to Mitzrayim, these are the very two who are rising up and saying we should have stayed in Mitzrayim. And don't turn there. What do we read about in Shemot 16? Shemot 16 we read about manna, when Yahweh rained down manna from heaven. And we read about some, listen, turn your neighbor and say some because you're sleeping.
Some.
We read about some Israelites who tried to what? Hide manna on Yom Shishi because they knew they weren't going to get any on Yom Shabbat. What did Yahweh do on Yom Shabbat? He rested. He didn't send down manna.
Right.
So because these folks knew that on Yom Shabbat there would be no fresh manna, they hid or tried to preserve the manna from Yom Shishi, and it turned and bred into worms. Our sages teach us, you know who some of those folks were? Datan and Aviram. Let's try that. Let's start again. Datan and Aviram reported Moshe as a murderer to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim. Datan was the one who was wrestling with the Mitzrayite because the Mitzrayite had raped his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than show Moshe gratefulness and thankfulness for his saving act, what did he do? He got into an argument with Aviram, his brother-in-law, over how to handle his unfaithful wife. Aviram said, she wasn't unfaithful, she was forced. She was violated. Datan says it doesn't matter, according to the Torah of Yahweh, which Enoch preached, and which Noah preached, and with Methuselah preached with Enoch before Yahweh closed the door of the ark. We read about that in Sefer Yashar.
Yeah.
So all these folks have been preaching the true and living Torah.
Yeah.
So what happened was, rather than be grateful, he says, are you going to kill me like you killed the Mitzrayite yesterday?
He's the only one there.
He was the only one there that to have known him. And so Datan says, no, she was not unfaithful. She was violated. And so the two brother-in-laws were fighting over exactly how to handle a difficult situation. How do we handle this difficult situation? That's why the two Ephraim, the two Hebrews, were struggling. And Datan didn't just develop a rebellion against Moshe, he had it in for Moshe going back to Mitzrayim. And he said, hey, Moshe, remember you took us out of the land flowing with milk and honey? It was you? Do you remember? It was you who murdered the Mitzrayim? It was you who are making up stories about wearing tzitzit and a blue thread of techelet. What kind of stupidity is that? How is that going to glorify Yahweh? Wearing a blue rope. Can't Yahweh think of better ways? So that Datan and Abiram had a track record, or a pre-existing condition, rebellion, discontentment, an attitude against ordained leadership is usually a pre-existing condition. We've heard it just the last few weeks from testimonies. It didn't start at Bnei Yeshua, it walked into Bnei Yeshua. Datan and Aviram did not start rebelling with Korach. They found Korach, and Korach found them, and they were men of like rebellious nature. They were men of like rebellious spirits. They were men of like rebellious attitudes against spiritual authority. And boy, they sure find each other, and they always will find each other. I don't care if a congregation has 1,000 people. I don't care if it has 5 people. The rebellious and the complainers and the murmurers will always cater to each other. They will always find each other. It's not a matter of hours. It's a matter of minutes.
And they even fight among themselves.
Seconds.
They'll find each other.
Yeah.
Nanoseconds.
So that Aviram and Datan found Korah. Korah found Aviram and Datan. And over what? An issue and a mitzvah that came right from Yahweh. If there ever was a mitzvah that came right from Yahweh, this is it. Because in the Pashat, how much sense does it make? Wear a rope with a blue thread? What kind of mitzvah is that?
That's why they call it a hook.
Yahweh, I understand the mercy seat. I understand the lid of atonement. I understand blood atonement. I understand remission of sin. I understand the Kadosh HaKadoshim. I understand approaching you through the gates. I understand those things. Those things make sense. But tzitzit with a blue techela, that's a hook. It makes no sense in the Pashat. And so when the rebellious don't understand a command, a mitzvah, a scripture, or the actions of leadership, they don't come for answers so they can get the answer and move on and grow and mature in the things of Yahweh. They go horizontally and look for Korah, and Korah looks for Abiram, and Abiram looks for Datan, and now they find each other.
Do you believe that also?
I know I'm preaching heavy tonight. It is tonight, you know.
Oh, yeah. Birds of a feather flock together.
That's right. But they find each other, and rather than saying, Moshe, can I speak to you? What's this thing about tzitzit and techelet? Can you please explain this to me? Give me my answer and let me go and get on with my life with Yahweh. What happens? They don't come to Aharon or to Moshe to find out why Yahweh gave this mitzvah. They don't accept it because it is to keep your eyes from fornication and to keep you focused in on obeying all the commandments of Yahweh. They continue with their pattern that they brought into the camp. They didn't develop. They didn't develop it in Ha-Midbar. They developed it in Mitzrayim. It is a trait of being a Mitzrayite, which is a type of a carnal mind and a carnal heart.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Amen. Amen.
So the attitude and spirit of rebellion against divine government is birthed in Mitzrayim, not in the wilderness. We are put in the wilderness to birth it or cast it out of us.
That's right. Amen.
But that spirit is always birthed in Mitzrayim.
Yes, that's
Amen.
right. That's the root. That's the root of it.
And it is so seductive that you think that being firm and taking authority, a stand against ordained authority, is cool. It's in. It's the right thing to do. Isn't all the congregation kadosh? Isn't all the congregation blood washed?
Sounds good.
Isn't all the congregation set apart?
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. So it's a trait of Mitzrayim that does not belong in the camp of Yisrael. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So, what a track record. Datan is not thankful. He turns against Moshe the very next day. Instead of thanking Baruch Hashem Yahweh, Baruch Hashem Yahweh, Baruch Hashem Yahweh, Bana, every day. There's no man on Shabbat. What kind of a God, good God is this? Hold on, Nanny. Now hold on. You're getting free food, free lunch, free breakfast, free lunch, and free dinner 6 days a week. And you can't get by on one day? And you turn against Yahweh because there's no man on Shabbat? To teach you that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. So you have a problem with the menu, is it? Is that what it is? So that it's not a problem with the menu of the wilderness menu, the first cafe of the wilderness. It's a problem that was birthed in Mitzrayim, and you have chosen to hold on to it. Does that make any sense?
It wasn't that, it'd been something else.
So that Datan and Aviram don't just pop out of left field into our scriptures.
Yeah.
They had a track record of despising divine government, divine order, command and control. You know, we love to sing songs about Yahweh's army, right? We're the army of Sharon, march in the sea, we're the army of, come let us go up to the, we're the army, we got the sword of the Spirit, right? But there's no command and control. We don't want command and control. Mashiach is our covering. That's all. We don't need anyone. We don't need to be horizontally submitted.
Tell me what.
So then, if there's no command and control, how can we be an organized army?
That's right.
How can we defeat the enemy? There has to be command and control. So not only that, these two, Datan and Aviram, broke the Shabbat, went out, listen, took some manna on the ground, made Moshe look like a Yahweh, like a liar. And according to our elders, listen, Yahweh sent birds to eat the leftover manna that turned into worms. So as you can see, there was a major struggle between these two and Moshe from the beginning. Did it manifest right away? But I'll guarantee you, every person that has a rebellious, contentious spirit, it will manifest. It may not manifest the first week. It may not manifest in a month, but they're already getting hooked up with Korah, and at the right time, that spirit will manifest. Okay? This spirit manifested where? In the wilderness. Where was it birthed? In Mitzrayim. It may not manifest till you get into the camp, but it didn't start in the camp. It was birthed in Mitzrayim. That's why Rashi says, pray for those in authority. Don't despise them. Don't talk about them. Don't think they're picking on you. I know I'm not an easy guy to get along with. Trust me. I live with myself. I understand that. I understand I can be a pain in the tuchus sometimes. And I also understand that there are times when you think that I'm picking on you. But I'm not. Sometimes it's me picking on you, but other times it's the Ruach HaKodesh. What do you do then? What do you do then? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So Aviram and Datan had a problem with leadership before they came into Israel. There's not one person in this room, here's the good news. There's not one person in this room that developed a rebellious spirit against congregational leadership while at Bnei Yeshua. That's the good news. The bad news is you're not doing anything about it. And you're still going to the same people who are Korach, and they'll rebel against anything. If these rebels rebelled against the mitzvah of Techelet, rather than obey the mitzvah and receive the corresponding blessing, what do? They mock the mitzvah. How many know that with rebellion comes a mocking spirit? Because if you don't value it and you don't trust the council and you don't honor the council, you're mocking the council. So how did they mock it? How did this mocking spirit manifest? They dressed in garments that were completely